So don't greenwash. And then be honest, be transparent, be authentic. We also, again, we don't try to be perfect, and I would really encourage every brand to not want to be perfect. Customers and people will accept that. If you take a step forward, then take the second step. And what you see a lot is that companies take one step and they talk about it. They use about 90% of the marketing budget to talk about 1% of the line. Thank you. Storytelling and changing narratives. I'll be talking about that. But let me first ask, who knows Patagonia, the brand here? That's quite a lot of hands. I do my job well. Who of you doesn't have a smartphone? Oh, there's nobody. I'm very happy to be here in Hamburg. Hamburg reminds me of the city I used to live 3 years ago, Amsterdam. It's very similar, lots of people on bikes. And when I lived in Amsterdam, I also commuted to my work. I was on my bike, I was cycling through the city. At the traffic light, I quickly wanted to grab my phone because, you know, I needed to send a little text to somebody. Lots of stuff happening around me when I was on my bike. And when I arrived at the office, my head was always really full of stuff. So I really had to calm down. Now I've moved to a little town, and I want to take you to my happy place. I moved to a little town on the beach, in the forest, and like many of us, I now work hybrid, remote and in the office. And if I spend my days at home, I first grab my mountain bike. Within 2 minutes, I'm on a mountain bike trail. I hear the birds. I hear the wind through the trees, and I hear my tires on the trail. I hit the beach. Sometimes I even see a seal. And when I arrive back home, I'm relaxed, and I start my day really relaxed. This is what nature does to us. Nature relaxes the brain. My work at Patagonia lives at the tension of these 2 points. The busy world, the digital world, but also us all protecting nature and making sure we use those things. It lives at the tension of making new products, but also saving the home planet. But let me start with where the story from Patagonia really started. Over here you see a photo in the early 70s. These were not environmentalists. These were counterculture rebels. In the middle with the S on the screen, you see the founder of Patagonia, Yvon. And these were all his friends, and he was making pitons. And pitons are the things they made in a forge, and actually that little tin shed is still at the office in Ventura, in the US. And they were making pitons. You hit them in the wall, and you secure yourself with climbing. So if you fall, you don't fall to death, but actually you're secured. In those early days, the early 70s, YC started looking. YC, the founder of Patagonia, we call him YC, Yvon Chouinard. He started seeing that those pitons, if you hit them in the wall, they left a hole. And that little hole meant future generations couldn't climb there anymore because you needed to have bigger and bigger pitons. So he started thinking, I need to do something different. He had a healthy business at that time. He could feed his family, he could feed all the families of his friends, and they had a healthy business. But he started thinking differently. And he started to look at clean climbing, where you have little hooks. You hook them in cracks. And he said, we're going to change our business model. All his friends said, you will go out of business if you do that. But from one day to the other, this was 1972, he changed his business model from those pitons hitting in the wall to clean climbing equipment. And he didn't lose his business. Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing here in front of all of you 50 years later. Actually, the opposite. This was the beginning of why Patagonia cares so much about quality. Because the pitons were life or death. This is the beginning why Patagonia really looks at responsibility and the impact we have. Because the future generations also need to be able to have a livable planet like we all do. So who are we? Patagonia makes gear for silent sports. For climbing, for surfing, for snowboarding, for skiing, for trail running, mountain biking, fishing. Some people walk the dog with it, but we make gear for that, technical gear for all those different sports. And let me tell you a story about Ventura and a little surf break over there. For all of you who surf, they probably look at this picture like I look at it. It's a perfect wave. You drop in, you have a clean face, and you can surf it. This is C Street. The yellow building you see there is the Patagonia office. This is what YC and his friends did. They moved the office and the company very close to these waves. And at a certain point, there was a river, or there is a river, the Ventura River. And the Ventura River is the reason why this wave is so good. Because the sediment of that river that builds perfect sandbanks, and the waves break on that sandbank. And at a certain point, the local government wanted to declare this river dead. They wanted to close it down and build stuff on it. And of course, the owners at that time, they weren't environmentalists, but they cared about that wave. And they didn't want that wave to go away, because if the river disappeared, the wave would disappear. There was a town hall at that time in Ventura, and they went there with everybody. And they sat, they heard developers talk about why the river should be closed and everything, why there should be buildings there. And then this one student came on stage. And this one student started to tell the story that this river wasn't that. He started showing photos of birds and wildlife, littlest insects, which were still living on the riverbanks. And instead of the river being declared dead, it was declared that it needs to come back to life. So this one student, by himself, protected this one river. And instead of the river going away, the government started to invest in the river, getting life back into this river. And this is the beginning of 1% for the planet. They gave this one student a desk, gave him a bag of money, and that's why we support grassroots activism. That's why we call ourselves the activist company. You can really split us up in two. One part is the activist company. And this is also lead us into the storytelling we do today. We focus on stories. We don't focus on content. Content is easy to make. Stories are really hard to tell. But stories can help make a difference. And we make stories. And we focus on all kinds of different stories, from saving rivers in the Balkan region. We support different grassroots NGOs, and we tell their stories on why we shouldn't build dams there. We support local NGOs in Iceland, in Scotland, and other places that are fighting against open net fish farming, and why that shouldn't be the case, and how we push that out. We focus on elections. We focus on community energy. And all these different storytelling comes from the basis of that one student that helped to save that one river. And in 2020, we joined an initiative that was called at that time Stop Hate for Profit. That's where different brands were asked to stop advertising on the Meta platforms. And we did that. We joined that. Because we believe that profiting on hate speech, capitalization on hate speech, is not the right thing to do. Now, all these years later, we still don't advertise there. And that thinking also is at the basis of a lot of things we do in the digital world. We look at the digital world the same as we look at the physical world. And we ask ourselves questions constantly. And that also, for instance, led us into a vertical running challenge, a trail running challenge, which is in the 1st of June, where we use the digital world. We bring people together all over the world on this digital platform, but we encourage them to run at home. We use the digital platform to get people outside in nature, but also close to home. That's running up for air. I would really encourage you to look at that. So that's the activist company. Then, of course, also we make products. We make different products for all these different sports. And I want to take you back to the 90s. when we just opened the store in Boston. The store was just open, and within weeks, people started to get ill who worked in the store. All the employees, they started to call in sick. They didn't feel well. So they sent some technicians in the store. The technicians looked around what was happening, and they realized that the circulation system in the store wasn't working. So of course the question was, but if the circulation system in the store is not working, why does everybody get sick? So the technicians told the company, that is because of all the pesticides used in the cotton. The pesticides are being circulated through the building, and your employees are getting sick. You're poisoning your employees, basically. That's the moment when the founder said, this is not going to happen anymore. This was 1992. He went to all his employees who were working on the products, and they said, we stop making products from non-organic cotton. They said, you can't do it. You'll run out of business. Products need to be more expensive. They said, we can't do it. There's no supply chain there. And YC said, no, we are going to do this. He put them all in the bus, drove to a cotton field, and if you see a cotton field which is non-organic, you'll get to work. And that's what the employees did. There's no life on a non-organic cotton field. So within 4 years, they completely changed the whole line. And since '96, everything we make, all the cotton is organic cotton. And this really is the story which started our responsibility. You don't hear us say we're a sustainable company. We're not a sustainable company. We're a responsible company, and we try to be as responsible as we can. And that's the same. That started the storytelling around a lot of other stories we tell around the products we make. By now, almost 90% of our line is made fair trade. By now, almost 85% of our line is made with recycled content. 100% of our down is traceable. Our wetsuit line is made with natural rubber. And we constantly strive to do these things different and push how products are made. But of course, that's looking at our products. We do something else as well. Repairing products is an essential thing. Repair is a radical act. We need to make sure that we keep the gear we have in play longer. We make high-quality products, and those high-quality products can be repaired and should be repaired. So zippers are meant to be repaired as well. We go on the road through all the world to repair people's gear. And we say, if you keep a garment in use for about 1 season, 8 to 9 months longer, that garment already has 20 to 30% less impact on the environment. That's why we go on the road and try to also make repairing acceptable again. That people repair their gear, and it's a cool thing that you repair your stuff. But also, we can't do this alone. This is a film which just dropped last week, the Shitropocene, the age of cheap crap. And we have reached the age of cheap crap. So we look within, we look at how we build our products, we make sure we repair people's products, but we also challenge the industry to change. And I would really encourage you to watch this film as well. Because, to be honest, we can't be the only ones who are doing this. The problems on the world are too big right now, and this can't just be Patagonia. Every brand needs to follow. We must not only tell commercial tales as marketers or storytellers, but we need to amplify the voices of those and the truth and the voices of those and others. Business as usual is death. The challenges we're going to face tomorrow are completely different than the challenges we face today. So we will struggle with completely different things. But it's up to us. This is a room full of creative minds. It's up to all of us which stories we're going to tell, what narratives we decide to change. And that means we need to keep moving forward, step by step by step. But sometimes that also means we need to stop, maybe look around, and maybe turn around, and then take a step forward, because that sometimes also means progress.
if the first 50 years were an experiment.
To prove that a business could be
responsible
and successful,
quiet,
and louder than hell.
Turns out it's not just possible,
it's profitable.
So what's next?
What's next is simple. It's human-powered, and it's finding the joy in doing difficult things.
What's next is turning capitalism on its head.
And putting all our money where our mouth is.
There's no planet B.
You know, you think life is just one big playground, and I went, well, yeah, it is.
There is a proverb that says, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together.
Not a lot of people understand how serious we are about saving this planet. I'm dead serious.
Großen Applaus bitte einmal für Jelle. Thank you. You want to sit down or you want to stand up?
Whatever you want.
No, whatever is more comfortable for you.
Let's sit down.
Let's sit down for a minute.
But I was told I need to take off the vest because it makes noise, so I'll take off the vest.
Oh, okay. Jelle.
Yes.
I think it's amazing what Patagonia tries to do, and especially the aim of the company. But in the end, probably for a couple of other companies around the world to look at what Patagonia does is, how do you stay sustainable on one hand and economical on the other hand?
That's a great question, and I think that's actually the tension point where we work within. First of all, again, we don't call ourselves a sustainable company. We're a responsible company. Every product we make has an impact on the environment. So instead of looking at like, are we sustainable? No, we're responsible. We try to move forward and we do the things in the right way. But then the friction point between responsibility and economy is something we drive at. Like, this is what we need to get the friction point. We live in a capitalist world, and we want to make sure we change the face of capitalism in the right way. So we realize that the planet is not indefinite, that we use the resources we have in the right way and the good way as possible. So yeah, we constantly work on that, and we're not perfect. We try to be as transparent as we can. If you go to our website, you can find a lot of information about our footprint, how we make our products, the factories we use, and we fail forward.
I think what you just said is really interesting because no one is perfect. You know, no company is perfect, no human being is perfect. That's what it's all about. But if it comes to sustainability, and especially our environment, I think people who focus on that topic are very radical, very stubborn. And some companies try to sort of change their way of producing their product and some in the way that they work. But then they get offended by people, or basically people say, you're trying to greenwash something that you have been trying or have been producing for years that hasn't been good for the environment. What would you, as an advice, give to them to be more courageous in trying new ways? Is that, I mean, because in the end, you need to bring the people who are fighting for our environment and companies who are trying to change together on the same level. How is that possible?
Well, I think, first of all, and sorry, this is in English, my German is not good enough. But I think the first thing really is that don't greenwash. So the starting point is don't greenwash. It's great there's legislation coming in from the EU, and for everybody, please go and vote. It's great that legislation comes in.
Beginning of June, ladies and gentlemen, beginning of June.
So don't greenwash. And then be honest, be transparent, be authentic. We also, again, we don't try to be perfect, and I would really encourage every brand to not want to be perfect. Customers and people will accept that. If you take a step forward, then take the second step. And what you see a lot is that companies take one step, and they talk about it. They use about 90% of the marketing budget to talk about 1% of the line. Ask questions to those companies if they do that. And just ask honest questions. But if you take the next step as a company, and the next step, and the next step, people will accept that, and we see that. Like, even we sometimes make mistakes, and if we're transparent about it, people accept that. So I would say do it authentic and do it in the right way.
So would you say that there was a turning point regarding the work of Patagonia and your fans or your customers at a certain point that they trusted you in what you were just saying, that you are making mistakes, but you're trying to change?
I would definitely say so, but also from where I sit in a very privileged position, because 50 years ago when the company was founded, Yvon already made the decisions to change things completely and change things drastically when the whole world wasn't even focused on it. We knew climate change and biodiversity loss was happening and gonna happen, but we, in general, people didn't really look at it. So it's 50 years of trying to do things as good as we can, and that helps a lot, of course, if the position I sit in and the storytelling I do. Also for me in my role, I've worked for other companies, and often marketing comes first. Let's roll this dirt and glitter a little bit. That's not my job. I come almost last. All the work is done. So we, in marketing, talk about the stuff we're doing, not about the stuff we're gonna do in the future. So yeah, that's probably a difference.
What they say about Germans is that Germans love to eat good food, but they don't want to pay for it. I think that's probably the same with the fashion industry, that people want to wear great stuff, but they don't want to pay the up margin if it is being produced somewhere that is sustainable in a sense. How do you communicate the way of, your production facilities and the pricing of your products? Is that important? And will that change in the future? Do you see a customer change, or an attitude change when it comes to paying more for better quality?
Yes, but definitely what you say about Germans, I'm Dutch, and we're probably the cheapest in the world.
Oh, okay.
Going Dutch even means splitting the bill if you're in a restaurant, so I think the Germans are pretty good. I think what we need to talk about is true price, because what do we see as the real price of a product? And that's often not what we perceive. If you look at fast fashion, for instance, and the prices we see, that can't be done in a responsible way. Somebody is suffering in the supply chain somewhere. But then quality is of the highest importance. If you build so-called sustainable products, organic cotton T-shirts, which fall apart after 2 days, how on earth can that be responsible? So it is also looking at how you build your products, and then they cost a certain price, yes. But we try to make sure that those things are repairable. So if you buy an item, you buy it once. It is timeless. Our products are timeless. So, and we pride ourselves if we see photos from somebody who's wearing her or his father's jackets, for instance, from back in the days. And those products get used very long time. So like all those things add up to a price. Sometimes there's also this saying where I can't afford to pay cheap clothes. And that is a reality as well. Like we probably need to look more at style instead of fashion and all those things.
Perfect. Thank you, Jelle Mul, for your time. Big round of applause for our guest on the red stage.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for doing what you do with Patagonia.